A sage's grief for a rash curse becomes a king's only warning, and Parikshit has 7 nights to prepare for the death he cannot escape. Adi Parva, Book 1, Chapter 38. Previously, young Shringi, inflamed by the news that King Parikshit had draped a dead serpent on his silent, fasting father's shoulder, curses the king, in fury. The great serpent Takshaka will kill him within 7 nights. The young sage spoke without remorse. He said whether this was rashness or an ill deed done, whether his words were pleasing or displeasing, what he had spoken was not false. This would not turn out otherwise, father. He said plainly that he did not speak falsely in ordinary speech, and how then could he do so when uttering a curse? Shamika listened, and when his son had finished, he spoke with sorrow rather than anger. I know you, my son, fierce in your power, true in your words. You have never spoken untruth before, and this too will not prove false. Yet a son, however grown, must always be corrected by his father, so that he may become endowed with virtues and attain lasting fame. How much more so when you are still a child, formed by austerities? The anger of those who wield such power grows exceedingly strong, and that is why I must admonish you, taking into account that you are my son, that you are young, and that you acted rashly. Therefore be composed. Live on what the forest provides, and put this anger aside. Do not forsake dharma. Anger destroys the dharma of ascetics, the dharma gathered through great hardship. Those stripped of dharma find no good path ahead. Tranquility alone brings fulfillment to those who practice forbearance. Both this world and the next belong to those who master their senses. Through forbearance, you will attain the worlds nearest to Brahma. Then the sage added, with quiet resolve, that as for what he was able to do that day, keeping to calmness, he would do that. He would send word to the king. Shamika instructed his disciple with these words, which he intended to be carried to King Parikshit. You have been cursed by my son, a child of immature judgment, O king, who saw this offense done to me by you and could not contain his anger. Having spoken thus, the sage, great in his austerities, unwavering in his vows, moved now by compassion, sent his disciple on that errand. The disciple's name was Gaurmukha, a man of good character and steady mind. And Shamika directed him to carry a greeting of goodwill, along with a full account of what had occurred. Gaurmukha went without delay to the Lord of Men, who was the glory of the Kuru line. He was announced by the doorkeepers and entered the royal palace. The king honored him, and after the Brahmin had rested, he delivered his account in full before the king and his ministers. The grave words of Shamika, exactly as they had been spoken. O Lord of Kings, Gaurmukha said, there lives in your realm a sage named Shamika, supremely righteous in nature, self-restrained, tranquil, and great in austerities. O tiger among men, you draped a dead serpent on his shoulder with the tip of your bow. He bore your act with forbearance, but his son could not. By that son you have been cursed today, O Lord of Kings, without the knowledge of his father. Takshaka, within 7 nights, will be the instrument of your death. Take measures to protect yourself. The sage said again and again, yet this cannot be made otherwise by anyone at all. He could not restrain his son, who was overcome with anger. Therefore I have been sent by him, O king, out of concern for your welfare. Hearing these grave words, the king, the joy of the Kuru line, great in his own discipline, was seized with anguish for having committed that wrong. When he learned that the foremost sage maintained a vow of silence, his heart was scorched again with grief. Recognizing the compassionate nature of Shamika, he was even more distressed for having given offense to such a man. Indeed, Parikshit, resplendent as a celestial being, did not grieve as much on hearing of his coming death as he grieved for having performed that act. May the revered sage extend his favor to me once more. As soon as the disciple had departed, the king's mind turned to what could be done. He took counsel with his ministers, and together they resolved on a course of precaution. A palace was built, resting on a single column, well secured on every side. The king posted guards there, along with physicians and medicines, and stationed Brahmins proficient in mantras, sacred utterances of power, around each approach. Remaining in that place, he continued to attend to the affairs of the realm, knowing Dharma, guarded at all times by his ministers. On the 7th day, a learned sage named Kashyapa came along the road, making for the king's palace. He had received word that today Takshaka, foremost of serpents, would carry off the best of kings to the realm of Yama, Lord of Death. Kashyapa had reflected thus: once the king is bitten by the Lord of Serpents, I will relieve him of the venom's burning. In that I shall find both gain and dharma. So he set forth with single-minded resolve. Taking the form of an aged Brahmin, Takshaka spotted Kashyapa coming along the road and moved to stop him. He approached and asked where he was going in such haste, and what task he intended to accomplish. Parikshit, the subduer of foes, born of the Kuru lineage. Takshaka, foremost of serpents, will today burn him with venom. To that king who will be bitten by the Lord of Serpents, whose venom blazes like fire, that king of boundless might, upholder of the Pandava lineage, I go swiftly to relieve him at once of the burning. Takshaka then dropped his disguise. I am that very Takshaka. I shall burn that lord of the earth. Turn back. You cannot cure one whom I have bitten. O Naga, once you have bitten that king, I will cure him of the venom. Such is my resolve, drawing upon the power of my knowledge. This chapter matters because Shamika, having admonished his son Shringi for the rash curse laid on King Parikshit, sends his disciple Gaurmukha to warn the king. In the next chapter, the account of the trial of Kashyapa and the serpent's deception moves the story forward. The journey continues in the next chapter.